What's up, chess player, and welcome to the live calculation class. I'm gonna try to solve this position together with you live. I'm gonna share all of my thoughts so that you have a clear and structured system how to think, how to find those great opportunities in your own chess games, and finally stop blundering your pieces, finally stop getting those painful losses. First of all, I encourage you to pause the video for a second and try to solve it yourself. Believe me, it's gonna make so much difference if you're gonna do it first yourself. You're going to be invested into it, then you're gonna be able to compare your thought process to mine, and then of course see the right solution. You're gonna understand these concepts because you are learning by doing. Yes, watching is good when I explain those concepts, but if you don't use it, it's not gonna actually stick to you. It's not gonna really be efficient for you. Okay, I hope you have succeeded, and now it's time for me to share with you my decision-making process here. So I'm playing as white. The first thing I'm thinking about is, of course, evaluating the position. This is always the first step, not immediately trying to, I don't know, crush my opponent and take something. No, just slow down a little bit. That's the advantage, the luxury of solving puzzles. We are not under time pressure, so I really want to take a look at the position and understand who is better here and what I'm playing for, because when I play a real game, I don't know whether I'm winning, whether I struggle to make a draw. I have to evaluate the position to understand that. So here, first of all, I look at the kings, because this is the first factor you must evaluate. If the king is getting checkmated, it doesn't matter if the other side has an extra queen. That's all that matters. In this case, I see that this king is definitely less secured because I have here 1, 2, 3 attacking pieces, and my king is actually relatively secure. This queen is somewhere close to the king, but doesn't really have any ways to create threats, and otherwise there are no attacking pieces, so my king is much more secure than my opponent's. Now, the second thing is, of course, calculate the number of pieces. I have here queen and 2 rooks, so is my opponent. I have the knight against the bishop, which is roughly the same, and in terms of pawn, I have here 5, my opponent has 7 pawns. Actually, my opponent has 2 pawns. Now, why is that relevant? If your opponent has material advantage, you understand, if I just play normally, if I just make normal moves, then that material advantage will matter eventually, and the opponent is gonna outplay me. So I have to be active right now. Now I need to focus on those very active things and just disregard everything else. Such evaluation of the position first helps you to focus on the right stuff and help you to save a lot of time as well as find the right moves. Okay, the next thing I have to check is, of course, the pieces activity, because it's really the amount of active pieces that matters and not just the amount of all of the pieces staying there. For example, if those rooks are staying there, well, this rook on e8 is a little bit active. Imagine it would be on a8, that would be doing absolutely nothing. As long as that is the case, who cares that the opponent has a rook there if it doesn't play? Or this bishop on b4, it actually doesn't do anything so far. Yes, it can go to e7 if I give it a tempo. So it's very important to understand for me that, first of all, I have material disadvantage, but my opponent's king is less secure and my pieces are more active. So I have to use this momentum before my opponent manages to stabilize. Now, with this in mind, let's see if I can actually find the right way to use it. So how to do that? First of all, I start with the most active opportunities, which are always checks, captures, and threats. The checks, well, I don't see any. Queen takes f7, queen takes g6, just blundering the queen, that doesn't give me anything. The second thing is the captures. That is something I have here, rook takes h7, except for the same queen captures, which are not really working, but rook h7 also doesn't work because my opponent actually attacks the queen. So one thing I forgot, and I recommend you never forget it, before you start thinking about your own ideas, try to understand whether your opponent has any threats for you. And yes, in this case, there is a huge threat just winning my queen in one move. I cannot just ignore it. I mean, if rook h7 would create a checkmate threat, then okay, I can say, take my queen, be happy with it, I'm gonna checkmate you. But that's not the case. So I need to acknowledge that and be aware, and then do something about it if I consider it to be dangerous. Apart from that, also there might be other threats, but currently I don't see any. So let's continue with approaching my ideas. I have considered the checks, the captures, Actually, not all of the captures, because the h7 pawn can be taken not only by the rook, but also by the knight. Knight takes h7. Then my opponent once again is taking the queen. This is like the most active opportunity he has, because it's important when you calculate the lines, not only think, okay, I'm taking my opponent's pawn, that is so great, he is not going to do anything. No, you have to think what kind of answers and options he has, and then decide whether it's okay for you or not. And please try to focus on the best stuff that your opponent has and not the one that you like for yourself. Okay, so knight takes h7, he takes my queen. I do have a check. If you are sacrificing the queen, you have to have something very dangerous, normally the check on the very next move, otherwise you're busted. Knight to f6 check, king to g7 is the only move. Do I have any continuation? I have the move rook to g3 check, and I have the move rook to h7 check. First of all, I see that rook h7, which seems to be the most active because it's close to the king. He plays king to g6, and I don't really see any follow-up whatsoever. No checks. And then, yeah, I cannot bring this rook fast enough. Nothing works. Rook to g3 is another move with a check. King goes to, yeah, to h8, let's say. Then, of course, I can repeat the moves, but I really want to win, at least in the beginning. I want to try to win the game. So I don't consider that as a success. And if he goes to h6, I also don't really know what I can do. Now, knight g4 check doesn't seem to work at all, because he can even sacrifice the entire queen and still be with the bishop extra, and then stabilize the position, and the game would be over. So that doesn't seem like a good way for me. Okay, let's say for now that no checks and captures are working, at least I don't see it. The next threat is threats. Threats are more complicated, and people are asking, like, how do you find threats? It's clear how to find the checks and captures, but what about the threats? The threat is actually creating an opportunity to do something dangerous for your opponent on the very next move. First of all, you start with creating threats against the king, because, like we have already figured out, the king is the most important piece in chess. If you're able to checkmate your opponent's king, you don't care about anything else. So, do I have any threats against the king? Well, this move queen to f6 seems to be interesting, because it's going near the king, it's controlling those squares, and if I'm given like one tempo, I'm gonna play rook takes h7, and then all sorts of checkmate opportunities will be absolutely unstoppable. So queen f7 does look like a very interesting opportunity if my opponent cannot stop rook h7. But what kind of opportunities he has? Well, first of all, he can attack my queen, bishop to e7, attacking the queen. Now what do? I don't want to go back with my queen, obviously. And if I continue my idea with rook takes h7, then he's going to take here. Yes, I can take back with the pawn, but in the best case scenario, I'm going to have a perpetual check, which is not enough for me. Okay, now I realize a better option. Queen to f6, bishop to e7, knight takes h7, because the pawn on g6 is actually still there. I mean, it's not taken here on f5, so when he takes my queen, I play knight takes f6, he has to go king g7, I have rook h7 checkmate. Because this pawn is there, the king has nowhere to escape, it's an actual checkmate. And if I play queen to f6, bishop e7, knight h7, he doesn't take, then what am I threatening? Well, I have opened up this file, which is very, very great generally, but I still have something concrete. To be honest, I don't really believe that he's gonna survive, even if I'm gonna just play queen f3 back, and then knight f6 is coming, and I'm still controlling this file, but yeah, I'm struggling. Ah, wait, I actually know it. Queen to f6, bishop e7, knight takes h7. My threat is to play queen takes e7 anyway, sacrificing my queen, rook takes, knight f6, check, king to g7, and rook h7, checkmate. The question is, does my opponent has any active moves meanwhile? I don't think so. The queen can only control this f6 square if he plays queen f4 or queen h4, that just plunders the queen. Maybe he can attack my rook, because my idea to play queen takes a7 is no check. Ah, wait! I have noticed an amazing opportunity. Yes, it actually works. Queen to f6, bishop e7, knight takes h7. Let's say he plays queen e2, attacking my rook with a check. Now, instead of my stupid move queen takes e7, I actually have queen h8 check, sacrificing the entire queen just to put this king into the corner and free in the f6 square for my knight. Knight f6 check, and now I'm noticing that queen e2 line wouldn't work for me because he would have queen h5 back. My idea was, of course, king to g7, rook h7 checkmate, but this queen can just come back. That would be a pity to miss something like that. Okay, queen f6, bishop e7, knight h7. That has to be great, but let me figure out queen e2. Actually, queen e2 is not like a big threat at all. It's just attacking my rook. But if I can improve my rook, let's say rook d4, then this thing doesn't change. Then queen h8 and ideas like that are still coming. Rook h4 is coming. He does have a check, but I can just play king h2. And bishop takes f6 still doesn't work. Queen takes e5. Actually not as stupid as it might seem, because when I take it, he has bishop d6, winning the queen back. But once again, I have knight f6, and that is a checkmate. So I like this variation. I think that after queen f6 and bishop e7, he doesn't really have anything, because I play knight h7 and then I'm crushing. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. Alright, queen f6. Bishop e7 is of course not the only move that my opponent might have. Let's say he plays rook e6, trying to attack my queen like that. First of all, I can just capture it, of course. And then I'm gonna win an exchange and a pawn with a check and still continue my attack. That already should be good enough. But I also have the same idea with knight takes h7, and I think, well, not necessarily, because now queen e2 is stronger. There is a real threat if I play the same rook d4, queen e1 check, king h2, and queen takes e5 with the check exchanging my queen. I don't want that. Yeah, I think after queen f6, rook e6, I should not be too smart and just take that rook on e6, enjoy my extra exchange. I was 2 pawns down. I'm gonna take on e6 and be just 1 pawn down for an exchange and have this passer on e file. The king is still naked. I could play something like queen d7. That's absolutely winning, so I should not worry about that. Queen to f6. Of course, he can just play, well, h6 doesn't help because of rook takes, just play h5 and block my rook like that, and I have to have a solution for that. The first thing that comes to mind, like I'm starting with the most active moves, so checks, captures, and threats. Checks don't really bring me anything except for losing my queen. Captures, well, rook takes h5 is the only new capture. Queen takes g6 doesn't make any sense, queen f7 as well. So rook takes, pawn takes. Now the obvious move is queen h6. No checks, no captures, but queen h6 is creating checkmate threat in 1. Now e4 square is not possible for the queen. The queen is the only piece to stop the checkmate. d3 is not possible due to the rook. So queen c2 is the only move. But that is pretty good because it stops queen h7 checkmate and it attacks my rook. I'm not sure I have a good follow-up afterward. But I have, after queen to f6 and h5, I absolutely have to do something active. Otherwise my opponent plays bishop e7 next move, and that would be all she wrote. Maybe I have the move e6. Before I go crazy and sacrifice my rook, why don't I check like normal opportunities? Still very active, it must be active, but it must not necessarily sacrifice everything I have left. e6, I really like that move because it puts so much pressure on this f7 pawn, which in turn is a very important defender for the g6 pawn. You cannot afford losing the g6 pawn because then checkmate is unstoppable. And he played h5, so the pawn is no longer on h7 protecting that g6 pawn. That means the pawn is more vulnerable, and if I can attack the second pawn on f7 and it disappears, then g6 pawn is unprotected. And then I also can include my rook into the attack if necessary. So queen f6, h5, just e6. I'm threatening e takes f, basically with a checkmate, so it's not possible to ignore, like bishop e7 I just take. Of course, the most active move is to take it with the pawn or with the rook. If pawn takes, I have queen takes g6, king h8, and queen h7 checkmate. If rook takes, I have knight takes again, pawn takes, otherwise I'm giving a checkmate, win a rook for free, so he has to take. And then I once again have just queen takes g6, king h8, and rook takes h5 checkmate. So he cannot take on e6. If he plays rook e7 trying to defend, then I guess I just still take. Rook takes. Yeah, I feel this is absolutely winning. I can take on g6 first, for example. He plays rook g7 because otherwise king h8, rook h5 is a checkmate, so rook g7. Now queen to e6 check. He has to put one of the rooks there. And then I can take it, enjoy my extra exchange. I'm winning so many pawns here. This is absolutely winning. So that's not a problem for me. So queen f6. Now, maybe my opponent can start with the move queen to e2 or queen to c2. That actually makes a lot of sense. Because, well, everything I'm threatening with queen f6 is just to take on h7, but it's not a check. If he threatens to take a rook with the check, that might be dangerous. So queen f6, queen to e2. What do? If I just play passively, like rook d4, then he once again can play queen e1 check, king h2, queen takes e5. He's gonna exchange the queens, and I'm gonna lose the game. I don't like that. Do I have something more active? Well, checks. Queen h8 doesn't work this time. King takes, rook takes h7, just king g8. I don't have anything at all. The same idea. Maybe I just sacrificed this rook on d1 anyway. When I play queen f6, queen to e2, I play rook takes h7, and he can take it with a check. I play king h2, and then I'm still threatening three different checkmates, like queen g7, queen h8, rook h8, and I don't see anything he can do. He absolutely must give a check, otherwise he's lost. So queen h5 is the only reasonable check to at least get this rook. I can just take it, pawn takes, and then I play queen to h6, threatening that queen h7 checkmate, and there are no ways to deal with it. The f-pawn, move-in doesn't help, queen h7 is still a checkmate, otherwise there is absolutely zero pieces to control that square. So yeah, I think queen to f6 is the right move in the position. I'm creating the threat of rook to takes h7. The key idea is if bishop e7, I have that knight h7, sacrificing the queen with the checkmate idea, and if he just attacks my rook over here, then I have rook h7 anyway, that doesn't stop me. If he plays h5, I have e6, I'm attacking the f7 pawn, you cannot take on e6 because you lose the key g6 pawn, and otherwise I'm just crushing. Let's now check the solution and see whether I was correct. All right, this is the position from the calculation book from Jakob Augard. I really like this book, and here is the one. Let's see the solution. Yay! Queen f6 exclamation point is the right move. I really hope you have the same one. Then after bishop e7, what else? Knight takes h7 is the brilliant move. Yeah, I really think this is the key, because if black doesn't stop that, we have so many threats, but bishop e7 is the key move to find this knight h7. Then queen goes to g4, and queen takes e7. Yeah, the variations we have calculated. Now if queen takes here, there are so many different moves. The first thing I see is queen takes f8, and then if he takes, we play knight f6 check, and just take the queen, and we are a knight up, but maybe there is something better than that. Maybe we can just play knight to f6 check immediately, then if king goes to h8, well, if king goes to g7, then we take here with a check, then play queen f6 check and win the queen for free. King goes to h8, then we still take, and we are threatening to take this guy, and this one is also hanging, so he has to play that. But I mean, this is so winning. Just queen f6, knight takes, we have an extra knight, an attack, and that's absolutely hopeless. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get the $200 limited time discount with the link in the description, and forget about all opening pain once and for all. I really hope you enjoyed this masterclass. Let me know in the comments your impressions, whether you have solved the position, whether you like this type of videos and want to see more. similar ones. I would really appreciate your feedback. And if you wish to know how to actually apply these calculation principles into the real game, then this video is perfect for you because I explain from the very first move what exactly you need to focus on to find such opportunities in your real chess games.